The Battle for Earth, Book 2 in the Aerial Between Two Worlds series, Chapter 2. Tall, with salt and pepper hair wound into an uncomfortably tight-looking bun, Susan Satterley is an imposing woman, but it's her eyes that really catch my attention. They seem weary, frightened, and completely at odds with the rest of the woman. "Susan," Caroline says, "this is Ariel and Davin. They are emissaries from Olympus." Susan flinches but quickly recovers. "'Tis a pleasure to meet you both, and I'm sorry to interrupt your visit with the President." Davin smiles and shakes her proffered hand. "We understand completely. Have your meeting. We will be waiting." Susan smiles wanly and turns toward me. "Ariel," she says, as she offers me her hand, which is decidedly clammy, "I hope that your visit will prove to be productive." "Thank you, Director Satterley." I pause for a moment, smiling politely. "With your help, and the President's, I'm sure it will be." She gives me a vapid smile. My remark has obviously confused her. "Susan and I will meet in my study," Caroline says. "We won't be long." "I know what you've been doing, Susan, and now I want a complete explanation." Even though Caroline and Susan are in the President's study, behind closed doors, we can hear them perfectly well, a fact neither of them realizes. "Are you going to fire me, boss?" Susan asks, clearly trying to lighten the mood. "I guess that depends on what you tell me." "Fair enough. I'll try to explain everything." "Try very hard, Susan. I will not settle for anything less than full disclosure." Caroline's tone is all business. She's not going to go easy on her friend. Susan clears her throat and begins. "Shortly after the first contact, a young man approached me in a coffee shop near my townhouse. He told me he had information concerning the Olympians, and if I was interested, he could arrange a meeting with his employer. He said the information she had could save the human race from annihilation." "And you believed him?" "Of course not. You know me better than that." "Right now, I'm not so sure I know you at all. Go on, please." "I set up a meeting and booked a private dining room at Fiola Mare. I also booked a table just outside the door for two friends of mine who happen to be CIA field agents." Susan pauses. She needs to let her apprehension go, I think. "And?" Caroline asks, sounding as if her patience is wearing thin. "At the appointed time, my contact, a woman named Emily, was ushered into the room by a hostess. We ordered drinks, and Emily told our server that we were not to be disturbed for 30 minutes. "Tell me about the woman. How old did she appear to be?" "Young. I'd say she looked early 20s, but she acted older. Her presence was commanding." "What did she tell you?" "It's more about what she showed me. There were videos, Caroline. At first I laughed because I thought she was showing me a sci-fi movie. But it was real. It was as if I were witnessing a battle among gods. They shot beams of light from their hands and moved impossibly fast. Emily said it was a sparring session, secretly filmed at an Olympian training base." "Could it have been staged?" "With access to sufficient expertise and equipment, I suppose so. But there was more. I was also shown footage of a young man ranting maniacally about how it was Olympian destiny to rule over all sentient races. And then Susan's voice catches, and she has to pause. Please go on, Susan. I must know everything. Well, when this man concluded his tirade, a child, a girl not more than 10 years old, was dragged into the scene. Susan's voice quavers, and I'm not sure I want to hear what comes next. Please, Susan, I know it's hard, but you must tell me what happened. Damn it, Caroline, you have no idea. I have seen a lot of bad things in my life, but this is the stuff of horror movies. What happened, Susan? The president commands in a hushed but serious tone. You really want to know? Susan asks, but does not wait for an answer. He raped her, and then he dismembered her with his bare hands. Caroline gasps. And you're sure it was real? Yes, I know it was real because the little girl was Amy Lawson. Caroline inhales sharply. The missing daughter of the movie star? Her image has been all over the news for weeks. I have no doubt it was her. My God. Davin and I reach for each other's hands, and an unspoken contract is signed with a simple glance. The fallen will pay for this. The two women are still for a few moments, and then Susan breaks the silence. I was wrong to keep this from you, but I thought it would be easier if only I bore the responsibility, at least until I knew for sure what was happening. When Emily told me that Olympian agents had infiltrated the Chinese government and were preparing to use the Chinese military to take down our grid, I knew you would be required to follow protocol, and we both know how much time that would waste. I thought that if I could ascertain the truth and deliver it to you in one tidy package, we could formulate a strategy without having to get NSA involved. I see. So, who does Emily work for? Susan clears her throat, and it sounds as if she has gotten up and is pacing the room. Emily claims to be the leader of an Olympian faction that is opposed to violence. She was so damn persuasive. Susan pauses. I am so sorry, Caroline. So very sorry. Did you get a last name? Yes, Williams. She lives in Princeton, New Jersey. I also got an address. It all checks out. She claims there are hundreds of friendly Olympians living on Earth as normal humans. Apparently they have the technology to hack into our systems without detection. The false identities they create are flawless. Can they hack into our defense systems? I don't think so. If they could, they probably wouldn't have needed me. What else have you learned? You're not going to like this, Susan says. For heaven's sake, Susan, just spit it out. We need to work together on this. Sorry, Susan says with genuine remorse. There are fallbacks in place, contingency plans. We must survive this. America is the key. Emily was pushing for us to make some strategic sacrifices, such as taking out Beijing, Moscow, Tehran, and Pyongyang. You mean with nukes? Correct. And she knows our nuclear protocols, the football, the biscuit, and the targeting procedures, including the ones not found on the internet. The football is a briefcase carried by a military aide. The aide and the football are accessible to the president within minutes, no matter where she may be. The biscuit is a digitized card that verifies the president's identity, allowing her to select nuclear targets and transmit the codes necessary to launch a strike. It is by no means a fail-safe system, because as long as the president and the Secretary of Defense are in agreement, boom. Caroline is silent for a moment, and I fear she might be about to lose it, but she recovers her poise. We cannot unleash nuclear war, Susan. You do realize that, don't you? Of course I do. There has to be a solution, one that doesn't involve millions of casualties. Have they enlisted Secretary Zahner? Harry Zahner is Caroline's Secretary of Defense, a former Army Brigadier General, and an old friend who served with her husband in Operation Desert Storm. No. Emily would like me to arrange a meeting, and I had no intention of doing that without your knowledge. We need to meet with Harry as soon as possible. Agreed. Listen, Susan. What you did was technically wrong, but they sold it well. And according to my Olympian contacts, Emily and her associates are remarkably adept in the art of persuasion. I just wish you would have come to me earlier. You're still my trusted advisor and my friend. Thank you, Caroline. And for what it's worth, I'm through playing secret agent. Good. Now let's move beyond regrets and apologies. I need to tell you more about my trip to Olympus. When my dad first contacted the president, he thought to seal the deal by taking her on a little day trip through the portal. It was a stroke of genius and a once-in-a-lifetime adventure for the president and her small entourage of Secret Service agents and aides. It must have been amazing, Susan says, with a smile in her voice. It was. I spent the day touring their capital, Portal City. The citizens there seemed to be happy, free, and damn friendly. I sensed no aggression, and the people I met seemed gracious and accommodating. If truth be told, I'd love to retire there. Every instinct I have screams that Olympus is our friend. That's very encouraging to hear. Had you been able to come with me, I'm sure you would have come to the same conclusion. The problems we face are complex, but it starts with an epidemic of disinformation. The most powerful nations on Earth have been working with and reacting to manufactured intelligence. I hate to admit it, but when I'm with those people, everything seems just a bit muddled. Well, that aligns with what Ariel and Davin have told me. What exactly did they tell you? We can discuss that later. Right now, I need to know how open-minded you're feeling. Fair to Midland. Susan sounds a little suspicious. Caroline pauses several beats before letting the hammer drop. They're angels, Susan. And the ones who contacted you are fallen angels. I imagine Susan's eyes going wide. but she answers calmly. With all due respect, you don't actually expect me to believe this, yeah? Frankly, I would be surprised if you did, but I'm pretty sure you will when you see their wings. Excuse me? Ariel has wings, Susan, and I assume Davin does as well. The director chuckles. You've never lied to me, Caroline. And I'm not lying now. Trust me. What role does Olympus play in this, then? Their civilization is much older than ours. The angels tasked with protecting us are based there. Susan clears her throat several times. Well, then I guess we should go inside. I'm anxious to make their acquaintance. One more thing, Susan. Yes? Exactly how did you get 3 fallen angels into this building? They are research interns. Perfect, Caroline mutters. I'll need you to inform them that the president would like to meet with them. I need you to get them into the Oval Office, Susan. Sorry we took so long, Caroline says as she and Susan enter the Oval Office. I hope your meeting was productive, Davin says with a bright smile. It was, Davin, Caroline says. And I'm so glad there are pastries left. I'm famished. The 2 women sit on the sofa opposite us. Susan, looking a lot less tense, clears her throat. So the president has advised me that you have... The poor woman is simply unable to say the word. That we have wings? Susan nods slowly. Would you like to see them? I ask. Yes, if you don't mind. I take Davin's hand and we stand, moving to the center of the room. It takes approximately 10 seconds for our wings to fully emerge, and when they do, we hold them tightly at our sides. In this position, they are not so imposing and can do little damage to the various artwork arranged around the office. Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, Susan says, as she crosses herself. Her expression is equal parts astonishment and alarm. Your Irish is showing, Susan, Caroline says with a chuckle. When I was a little girl, Susan says, I imagined a guardian angel was watching over me. But then, as I got older, I became something of a skeptic. Susan's lips turn up into a big smile. I assume you can fly? Davin laughs softly. We can, but I'm afraid this office might be a tad too small for a demonstration. Perhaps another time? I'd like that, Susan says. I imagine you have many different kinds of powers. We do, Davin says. For instance, we can project energy from our hands, like the fallen angels in Emily's video. How did you? Susan gasps audibly as realization sets in. You heard us. You heard what we said in the president's study? We have remarkably sensitive hearing, I say, with pursed lips. Susan smiles sheepishly, while Caroline seems deep in thought. Of course, the ability to project beams of energy is very rare, I add. But you have that ability, Caroline states with confidence. Caroline is a remarkably perceptive woman, I decide. No wonder I voted for her. Yes, Davin and I can both do it, I reply. And shall I assume that the 2 of you possess other interesting abilities? Caroline asks. That would be an excellent assumption, I reply, with tongue firmly in cheek. I can sense her emotions clearly. Caroline is beginning to figure some things out, and this pleases her immensely. Susan, on the other hand, is a few steps behind, but catching up fast. You could destroy them all, but you haven't, Susan says, her brow furrowed. Davin nods. We could, just as you could destroy all of your enemies with a few well-placed nuclear bombs. But at what cost? Point taken, Susan says. How much damage can our enemies cause? Caroline asks, and I know she is not going to like my answer. There is no limit to the destruction they can inflict, I say, and that's why we're here. The fallen have, in essence, declared war on Earth, and Paradise has countered by declaring war on them. And the human race is sitting in the crossfire, Caroline mutters. If we are to be allies, Davin says, we need to be open with each other. It's time for us to negotiate an alliance. But before we begin, we need you and Susan to understand that you cannot hide anything from us. Ariel and I will know if you do. Susan's eyes go wide. Is this because you know everything about us? Or is it one of your talents? I smile. It is one of many talents we have been blessed with, Susan. Now I'd like to show you another. I stand and hold my hand out to her. Would you take my hand, please? Susan rises to her feet and stands before me. What are you going to do? I'm going to share my emotions with you. You'll feel what I feel. You'll feel it all in your soul. You can't control my mind, can you? I shake my head and smile. No. We can be persuasive, but we can't control you. It's against the rules, I say, with a wink. She takes my hand, and I concentrate on projecting an image that I know she wants to see, that she needs to see. Susan trembles, her eyes close, and her mouth forms a perfect O. 'Tis the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Is it? Susan pauses. I know she's awaiting my confirmation. It's the palace gardens, I say, on Paradise. The other people, the other angels, they are bowing to you. Why are they bowing? Susan's eyes remained closed, her voice small. Davin and I are royals, Susan. We are heirs to the throne of Paradise. We rule over all angels. You are not like the other angels, then. I laugh softly and squeeze her hand. Paradise has blessed us with unique abilities that go beyond those of other angels. Paradise, she whispers. Can you tell us about God? Good question, I think, and one I'm really not prepared to answer with confidence, since my grandmother's explanation was a bit cryptic, to say the least. The Creator exists in a different realm, outside our reality, Susan. When we have more time, we can talk about it. I give her a conciliatory smile. Now, sit back and relax. We have plans to formulate. They'll be here in 15 minutes, Susan says, as she ends the call. But I have to tell you, I've got a bad feeling about this. There is nothing to worry about, Davin says. As I said before, they are no match for us. Susan looks fretful, and Caroline? I can sense unease, but she's got enough poise and gumption to keep it under control. Are you certain your shields will keep my people from entering this office? Caroline asks, as she leans against the resolute desk, looking about as presidential as she can under the circumstances. And what about us? Susan asks. Will your shields protect us too? I give the woman a reassuring smile. It will be as if we are encased within several feet of concrete and steel. Nothing can breach it. Once the fallen arrive, we will place another shield around the office, preventing anyone from entering or leaving. Susan nods her head, but does not look convinced. I place my hand on her arm and smile. Trust me.